Welcome to Motoroids, guys. My name is Amit and this is the Hyundai Creta N-Line. Now, full disclosure, I've been a big fan of the N-Line family of cars, and whether it was on the Hyundai i20 or the Venue, I really loved the N-Line versions because the steering was so much better, the suspension felt more European, the cars had a more planted feel to them, and generally speaking, if you compare them with your regular Hyundai cars, the difference from a driver's perspective was phenomenal. It was really differentiated. So have Hyundai managed to weave the same magic with the Creta as well? Let's find out. Now, straight off the bat, the one thing that you need to know is that in terms of power, that is the engine, 1.5 liter turbo petrol engine that was there on the standard Creta as well. There has been no changes in terms of the tuning, no changes in terms of the transmission. It still gets the 7-speed DCT, and there also there has been no change in terms of the tuning. So the power is laid down to the ground in the exact same manner as it is on the standard Creta. So that's one. But Hyundai claims that the steering and suspension on this car is different, like it is on the Hyundai i20 as well as the Venue N-Line. Now, to be completely honest, when I drive this car, the difference is not as differentiated as on the other two cars that I mentioned. For example, when I drove the Venue, it was chalk and cheese. It was very different from the standard fare. But here on the Creta, I can tell you that the steering feel is not all that much different from the standard car, and that means that they had already tuned the standard car pretty well because it had a more powerful engine. So as far as the steering goes, I think this is pretty similar to the standard Creta. The suspension, I can feel a fair bit of firmness, but it is not uncomfortable at any point in time. To put things in perspective, I drove the Seltos a few days back, and I can tell you that this is definitely better sorted. The Seltos, right from the word go, feels a little bit more jittery, a little bit more uncomfortable. This is more planted, this is more settled, and even if you're an enthusiast, while the Seltos wants to be a little bit more enthusiast-oriented car, even if you are an enthusiast, I can recommend that you go with this specific version of the car because it feels more settled, more comfortable, while also being sporty. From behind the steering wheel, if you're driving the 1.5 liter turbo SXO, maybe you'll not feel much different except for the fact that this one has a slightly firmer suspension. Now, apart from the seat of the pants experience, the other difference is how you'd feel from behind the wheel, because this interior is all black and all of these red highlights have definitely spruced the interior up. It feels more sporty and you do feel like you're driving a sportier car. So that by itself is also an addition which really adds to the sporty character of the car. But purely from a driving experience, I think apart from the slight bit of firmness to the suspension where the damping has been changed is what we have been told, you'd feel that you're driving the standard car only, and the difference is not as pronounced as the Venue and the i20. Now, the other thing is that there's a spoiler on this car, and that has improved the aero bits, and by virtue of that, the fuel efficiency has increased very marginally and is 18 kmpl on the manual version now. So it's increased very marginally, but they say that the spoiler on this car is a functional bit. Apart from that, obviously now it gets 18-inch wheels. So the difference that I'm seeing here in terms of the firmness might very well be attributed to the fact that the tires are lower profile. The 18-inch wheels were not available on the standard Creta. So the ride quality here is firmer by virtue of that only. I'm saying all of this because this still rides very comfortably. This is not as jittery or as uncomfortable or as firm as a Seltos. So in my personal opinion, the difference in terms of the suspension also is not enormous and might well be down to the fact that this is an 18-inch wheel with a lower profile tire. That said, what I can really laud Hyundai for is that they have tuned the suspension really well. And if you have to choose between the Seltos and this car, I'm talking about the GT line, the top of the line variants, or the X line versus this car, the suspension here definitely feels more sorted. It's sporty, but not in an uncomfortable, jittery way. So in one word, if you had to pick one car of the two, whether the Seltos or the N-Line, I think the N-Line has a better steering suspension setup. Now, according to Hyundai, the 0 to 100 timing of this car is 8.9 seconds. And let's do that test as well. In terms of the top speed, this car is capable of not just nudging, but also going past 200 kilometers per hour on the speedo. And while that's not recommended, you should not do that, but this car is capable of reaching those speeds. So it's a pretty performance oriented car. All right then guys, so let's do the 0 to 100 run of the Hyundai Creta N-Line. I'm putting the car in sport mode. I'll not be using the manual gear shifts. I'll be allowing the car to change the gears all by itself. Let me turn the AC off and I'm leaving the traction control on. And let's see what this car can do for us. Build some revs. Let's go. Sounds nice, and we are through. Do let us know what you think the 0 to 100 timing of this car is with two on board. I am about 90 kgs and my colleague is about 65 kgs. And even if it's a little bit off, I think that's fine because the weight is a little more than what the ideal weight on the car should be. So all in all, a fantastic package. I really believe that it's not an out and out uncomfortable, too firm kind of a sporty setup. Very comfortable, can be used with the family also, and very well tuned. If you have to talk about the outright performance, I think the Germans are still slightly better. They are a little bit more stable, and in the real world their acceleration is also a little bit better, but I really believe that Hyundai have done a fantastic job with this car. It's a very ambidextrous, very versatile kind of a car which can be used by the enthusiast to ferry his family around as well. And if you're someone who's looking for the top end variants of the Creta, do take a look because it does feel more special than the standard version. Now let's have a look at all the other changes, including features and cosmetic changes about this car. But before I get out, I just forgot to tell you the real world fuel efficiency of this car, and it's exactly the same as the standard Creta. So you'll get about 12 to 13 kilometers to the liter within the city depending on the traffic, and on the highway you'll get anywhere from 16 to 17 kilometers to the liter if you're driving with a light right foot. If you're going to be using the turbo power here, it'll again come down to about 11-12. So you have to drive with some restraint if you want to be getting a good fuel efficiency on this car. Now Hyundai claims that there are as many as 30 additions on the Hyundai Creta N line as compared to the SXO variant of the standard Creta. Now when I say additions, it means that most of these changes are cosmetic. In fact, there is only one change which can be called functional over the standard Creta, and that's the 18-inch wheels. Apart from that, everything else is just a cosmetic change, except for the N8 variant, where you get a dual camera dash cam, which is not available on any of the standard Creta variants. Now let's have a look at all the changes that the new Creta N line has over the SXO one by one. Up front, you have this new grille which has smaller gaps as compared to the standard Creta. It also gets a honeycomb mesh kind of a design. Then you get this N-line badging, a new lower bumper, and this N-line color lining on the lower bumper as well. Now on the side you have bigger 18-inch machine cut alloys with this red caliper peeping through it, makes it look really nice and sexy. The tires here are 215 section. You also get this N-line badging here and this lining here over the side skirt. Obviously the rear wheels are also 18 inches. This color that you see here is exclusive to the N-line. I'll talk about the colors in a little bit. Coming towards the rear, the spoiler is exclusive to the N-line variant. And as I mentioned while I was driving, this is supposed to be a functional bit, improves the aero of the car by some margin, and has supposedly improved the fuel efficiency also very marginally. There is N-line badging here as well. And just like the front, the rear bumper also has undergone a change. You get these 4 diffusers along with this red lining, which is a horizontal piece, as well as this vertical piece as well. You get these twin muffler tips, but mind you, unlike the Hyundai i20 and Venue N-line versions, this does not create a different sound. So it's just a tip. It's meant only for the aesthetics of it. It's not meant to create a sound which is differentiated, and I miss that. I really love the muffled kind of a sound which the i20 and when you're idling the car. Let's fire the engine up and see if there is any difference in the sound. Now in terms of colors, the new Hyundai Creta N-line gets 6 colors in all, where there are 3 monotone and 3 dual tone options. In the monotone options, you have an all new Titan Grey matte color, then you have the Abyss black color and an Atlas white. And for the dual tone options, you have the Thunder Blue with Abyss black roof, which you can see right here, Shadow Grey with Abyss black roof, and Atlas white with Abyss black roof. So like I mentioned, there are no feature related changes on the interior of this car as opposed to the SX options variant, but cosmetically there is a lot of difference. And to start off, you can see that on the dash you have this really nice red highlight The start stop button is also circled with red, and you have this red highlight here as well. The interior is also all black, and it really adds a touch of sportiness and, may I add, premiumness to the interior of the car. I really like this all black interior as opposed to any other version of the Hyundai Creta standard version. Now you also have these sportier seats which have this red piping as well as red stitching. It is very nicely contoured. It's done in leatherette. You have this checkered marking here and the N marking here. Apart from that, the steering here is also new, and I really love how it looks over the standard Creta. It also gets this N badging, red contrasting stitching all around. The gear selector also gets the N badging and a red highlight along with red stitching right here. The armrest also gets this red stitching, and another big difference that you won't be able to see right now is that the ambient lighting on this car is red as opposed to the amber lighting on the standard Creta. Now, just like the front, the changes at the rear are also purely cosmetic, save for one change. And let's have a look at the cosmetic changes first. You have this checkered badging here, you have this red stitching and red piping. But the one functional change is that you now get these soft cushions on the top of the line N10 variant. N8 variant does not get it. So those are the only cosmetic changes that this car gets, and apart from that, feature wise, the SX options variant is exactly the same as the N-line variant. And if you want to understand all the features in detail, I have done a very detailed review of the Hyundai Creta. Go ahead and have a look at that very detailed review on our channel. Now the N8 and N10 also have some differences, and let's have a look at what those changes are, the features that the N10 gets over the N8. On the N10, you'll get an auto up and down driver side window, a day-night mirror with telematics, front parking sensors. You'll get the full suite of ADAS with a 360-degree camera. Mind you, the N8 will get you the dash cam, which is a dual camera. You won't get that on the N10 variant. You'll get a red ambient light as compared to the amber lighting that you get on the standard variant on the N10. On the N10, you'll get the powered 8-way adjustable driver's seat. You'll get a rear headrest cushion. You'll get a voice-enabled panoramic sunroof. You'll get ventilated front seats. On the N10, you get a 10.25-inch infotainment system, while on the N8, you get 8-inch system. But mind you, on the 8-inch system, you get wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which you don't get on the 10.25-inch infotainment system. On the N10, you'll get a Bose sound system and JioSaavn Music Pro connection. You'll get all the BlueLink connected car features, OTA updates, and home to car with Alexa. Now, in terms of pricing, the N-line has been priced rather well, and the kind of goodies that it's offering for the small amount of premium that you have to pay is absolutely worth it. Let's have a look at the pricing of all the variants. And if you compare it with the top of the line SX options variants, the difference is only 30,000 rupees, which is definitely well worth it. Now, the N-line Creta did not have the manual transmission with the turbo earlier. Now it does, and in the N8 as well as N10 variants, it's available with a DCT as well as a 6-speed manual transmission. So the N8 variant with manual transmission is 16,82,300, and with DCT it's 18,32,300. And for the N10 variant, the manual version is 19,34,300, and the one with the DCT is 20,29,900. And as I mentioned, it's only 30,000 rupees more than the standard variant. And with all the warranties, etc. being the same, I think it's fantastic value for money, especially if you're someone who wants to drive yourself and also wants to distinguish yourself as a sportier driver. I really hope that this video was useful to you, that you were able to understand all the differences between the standard and the N-line versions of the Hyundai Creta. If you like the video, hit that like button, subscribe to Motoroids, share this video with your friends who are interested in a car in this segment. And until next time, this is your friend Amit Changani signing off. Rev hard, rev free, and drive safe.